Welcome to Savage Clarity with Benny Briggs. Today we're going to be working on How to Stay Out of Jail, Episode 2. Our subject for today will be labels. So, have you ever heard once an addict, always an addict? Or once a felon, always a felon? Once a convict, always a convict? Once a liar, always a liar? Once a cheater, always a cheater? Yeah, well, those are labels, and they're predictive programming used by our society and the United States, probably globally, that gives a person an excuse to behave the way he wants to behave. So let's get into it. Let's say you spend 3 to 5 years in prison. I don't know, a little more, a little less, whatever. Whatever you may have spent in prison, or you or one of your family members. Um, they get out of jail. They go to get a job that they want. They really think they're going to get this job. And for whatever reason, they don't get the job. And then it happens again, right? Most of the time, people will say, well, I can't get the job because I'm a felon, because I'm an ex-con, right? So then the thinking process leads them to behaviors that they did before they went to prison, which ultimately returns them back to prison. So, in this episode, I'm going to teach you how to overcome these labels. First of all, the vocabulary, you have to understand that labels are self fulfilling prophecy, meaning that you are what you think yourself to be. So, me, I gave the 17 years of my adult life in the penitentiary because I did not understand labels. I mean, there's definitely a lot more to it. We'll get into more of those on future episodes. But when I would get out of prison, I would be broke. Not that I was broke uh, emotionally or spiritually, I was broke financially, right? And when you come from a background of fast money and immediate gratification, being broke is not the thing. So I would get out and I would work a regular job. I had really my skill set really had nothing to do with any type of position, but maybe fast food or a janitor or whatever. But I would go to work. I would maybe go to work, you know, cleaning buildings or working in a restaurant. And I would get a paycheck that just wasn't like the money I used to get when I was in the game. So, what would I tell myself? I would tell myself that I didn't want to be broke and that this money wasn't fast enough for me, right? But I would keep working. And I had no real support system behind me. No one that could tell me these things that I'm telling you now because everybody in the game believed that the game was the way to go. And everybody outside the game thought I was a loser anyway, right? So I would tell myself, well, I'm a con anyway, so it ain't going to matter. And what would I do? I would go pick up my last paycheck and I would go buy dope and I would go to work. Well, I spent the 17 years on the installment plan, six here, four here, five there, two here, because I bought into the reservation. When I got out 15 years ago, I decided that jail was no longer an option, right? Meaning that there was nothing that I was going to do that was going to sacrifice my freedom or take me away from my family or my friends. I would sit, I sit in the pod, I be playing poker or whatever, and I would hear my friends, or individuals that I associated with in prison. I would hear them talking about, yeah, I don't fuck with them lames or squares or busters. I'm a G, I'm a pimp, I'm this, I'm that. And for a lot of years, I bought into it. But the reality is that the lames, were had passports and they was traveling around, the world. The busters owned businesses. The squares, they were eating steak, and we was eating some meatloaf substitute. You know, uh, they were out in the world with their women, with their family members, and uh, an epiphany came over me. I really understood that I had to get out of that way of thinking. I had to stop giving myself excuses of why I was being so selfish and would take myself away from my family and my friends. And you can go to any prison and ask any of them, are they a good dad? And they would raise their hand and tell you that they are good dads, which in case in reality, they're not, because you're so selfish that you want to take yourself away from your kids just to get your own needs met, right? Now, as an adult, I know these things, but then I always had that voice in my ear. You got to do what you got to do. You got to get it. You got to go get this money. So, with labels, you have to be aware of when you're giving yourself an excuse to behave poorly. And let me tell you, poor decision making is big business in the United States. You can see it all over the country. I don't care what city you're in. You can see the homeless. You can see the recidivism rates. You can see the mental health. You can see the substance use disorders. You can just see dope fiends everywhere. So these are businesses now. United States spent 40 years making this a business. In Arizona, there's a place called Penal County, which is all prisons. Now, I don't know if they named it Penal County because of the prisons, but I know that it's there because I've been there. So, if you believe for one instant that you're hurting anybody besides yourself in prison, you're really not. You're teaching your kids how to go to prison, or not how to go to prison, but you're teaching your children that it's all right to be in prison. You're making sure that your PO is getting paid, that the judge is getting paid, that your public defender is getting paid, or your hired attorney, that the commissary guy is getting paid. You can go to the store, to canteen, to commissary, whatever you call it in your state, and then you can go buy a pack of ramen noodles. Well, I can guarantee you that the commissary, the guy that runs that store, he went to Costco and got about 5 or 6 big packets of that ramen, and he paid maybe $40 for it. And he's selling you that same ramen for $1.20 a pack, so he can send his kids to college, and he can go on vacation, all while you're sitting in jail talking about what you used to do when you was outside and when you was in the world, right? But I digress. We have to overcome our labels. We have to overcome these labels by giving ourselves something positive, right? So, what are some of the labels that you can be that would be beneficial to your self betterment or to you becoming the best version of yourself? The labels are good father, business owner, uh, college graduate, right? Good son, good mother, good friend, right? You can't be any of that when you're in prison. The only thing you can do is call and ask for money if you don't have no hustle in the prison, right? So you overcome these labels by understanding when you want to give yourself an excuse, right? Yeah, right now after COVID, so it's 2024, but after COVID, everyone was hiring, right? There was no way you could not get a job, right? But yet people still didn't want the jobs they could get. So imagine getting out, going to work, putting an application in at Wendy's. At one time, Wendy's was paying $18 an hour, right? But yet 90% of the prison population that gets out don't want to work in Wendy's, but will work in the prison kitchen, right? For 50 cent to 80 cent, right? They don't want to do janitorial work, but they'll work in the pods, sweeping and mopping, you know, uh, taking care of the living area of other people in prison, right? And you think about it, there's no real comparison to the exponential amount of money that you can make just working at Wendy's. You have to teach yourself some things. There's a beautiful tool out here. They got Google, they got YouTube, they got uh, they got AI now. So there's virtually nothing that you cannot do in this world. So you got to stop using these labels as excuses to behave poorly. Now, if you've made it this far and you like the content, please make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure you send this video to people that need it. We're building a movement now. We want to show that it's not about being in prison, it's about being productive members of society. You're not going to see much of that, because they don't want you to learn anything. That's why when you're in prison, I know in this state they'll give you an Xbox, they'll give you a TV. Most prisons they'll give you your own TV, and you can just sit back and do your time, right? You can lift weights, you can do whatever you want to do as long as your ass don't pick up a book, as long as you don't learn nothing new. So when you get out and things become overwhelming, you can use one of those labels to go back to prison. You can definitely use one of those labels. And guess what? Those labels, if you don't have any self awareness or situational awareness, you're going to do it because most of us humans, right? We inherently want to take the shortcut. Just humans, not just people in prison. You want to win the lottery. You want the best jobs. You want the hookup. Any person that you see out here that has been incarcerated before, never mind incarceration, any person that you see out here in the world that is they look like they're doing really well from the outside looking in, that's hard work. That's hard work and perseverance. And it takes hard work to pay attention to your mind. You have to be ever vigilant when it comes to paying attention to self, right? Because we're filled with all of this thinking about what we're going to do, right? But as soon as we stumble or as soon as a challenge comes up that seems like it's too big, then we go back to the nonsense, right? So I'm at 14 minutes right now. I'm going to go ahead and in this video, we will be talking about self awareness, situational awareness, emotional awareness, and intelligence, time management, money management, how to say no, how to be told no, how to build your credit. We're going to talk about things, how to humble yourself. We're going to talk about things in these next episodes that are going to give you the puzzle pieces so that you can put it together and stay out of jail. So again, this is Benny Briggs with Savage Clarity. If you like this content, please subscribe and hit that button. Make it so that people that need to hear it need to hear it. With that, I'm out of here.